Hello, and welcome back to Season 2 of Desert Island Slabs. I'm James, My Sports Compendium, and every episode we delve deeper into the collector and the psyche of collecting. Each episode I have a different guest on. A guest that I revere, a guest that I respect, and I invite them to take us on a journey. A journey into the deepest part of their collection, but also the deepest recesses of their soul. My guest this episode is Doug Jones. He works in compiling and checking football odds, but his hobby is also predominantly football based. Doug is a collector that actually he had a podcast which was a big part of my entry into the hobby, actually. So it's a little bit, it's like I'm speaking to the Godfather, and I'm hosting the Godfather on this episode, and he is dressed wonderfully, I might add, as you can tell, in full Spice Boy attire for his FA Cup final. Doug, thank you so much for coming on. How are you?
Little under the weather, but no, I'm so happy to be here. As I said, this is my FA Cup final, so even if it's literally pajamas from the waist down, it is a tribute, to the 90s FA Cups, when it was the biggest deal around. It was a full day event, and this is my FA Cup final, so a joke which I'll probably not find funny in 10 seconds time when I start sweating, but
Doug, you look absolutely great. And obviously for anyone that hasn't watched this, because we've been away for a while, I ask a collector to choose the 8 items in their collection that they would save above all others, that they would take if they were being stranded, if they were being marooned to a theoretical desert island. And obviously, it's with the collectors on the show, with the guests, it's quite difficult because you own so many items a lot of the time. And how did you come to decide upon the 8 that you chose for this episode in your Desert Island Slabs?
So at first I thought, imagine your house is on fire. What 8 things are you going to save? But I don't think that works, because then value comes in, which it probably shouldn't, or if not value, literally price, where that creeps in where, maybe that shouldn't be the case. So I tried to think, and also this is a podcast, what makes a good story? Because, for example, my Garincha collection, there's almost no story behind them beyond, I think that's a cool card, that's a cool sticker. So I guess I had to filter some of those things out, hopefully not a spoiler. But I say about 5 or 6, quite easy, and then it was sort of a 5 into 2 situation. And just umming and ahhing over that. But no, a fun process.
Yeah, and it's I mean, the 8 you've chosen, obviously I've seen them, and we've had a chat about them as well. And I mean, some of the stories we're going to go into sound absolutely amazing, and I think this is a completely appropriate place to start with your first item, your first choice. And do you want to introduce your first item and tell us a little bit about it?
So I guess it's probably more about the player and the era than the item itself. So it's a Romario World Cup 94 sticker, not Panini. I can be one of those eBay listings, no Panini, which I'm not sure why they exist. But it's a Service Line is the brand, and it's also from Modena in Italy. So it's more about the player, and I think I finally get a chance to do my sort of origin story into the hobby, which I never really took proper time to think about. It was a bit of a blur, sort of what came first. I think I originally said it was Merlin stickers, but Merlin stickers were sort of 3rd or 4th in the hierarchy timing wise. But no, my very first taste of everything was around that World Cup 94, and it was just before with, I don't know if you remember, I never know if they're Barrett or Bassett. I think they're the same brand, in fact.
They're both, I think. Yeah, well, they are both, yeah.
Because, my very first taste, literally, it was 1993 probably, those little candy cane sticks.
Yeah.
Which were... So part of my childhood was you don't waste food. Like, if you have food, you eat it. And that was a massive dilemma because these sticks were... Like, these were disgusting, these packs. They're like little matchboxes with a card on top. And I would just sit on the floor of my local newsagents and just go through all these packs. Like, this is a world before CT scanners. This is where you just open up the box and have a quick look. But at that time it was literally, who do I recognise? And bringing it back to Romario, if his card came, I wouldn't have recognised who he was. And I guess what I want to get onto is that was part of the magic of your first World Cup. Is, being introduced to players via a World Cup is like, it's like the greatest thing ever. Like, you can't, I guess social media era now has kind of killed that mass internet. I guess there's some nations you don't know the teams unless you're really like hardcore football fan, but just being introduced to, a few months later when this World Cup came along, Romario, Baggio, Stoichkov, Brolin, Hadji, Valderrama, need to shout him out. But it felt like every team had one of these talismanic number 10s or like a number 9 in Romario's case. And it was just like dripping with flair, that World Cup. And that was I had no reference point. So I thought, wow, this is the greatest tournament ever. And my brother, I didn't actually have the album. My brother had the album at the time. He's a couple of years older than me. And the funny thing with having a World Cup album when you don't necessarily know the teams that well is, so he'd be filling up the stickers during the tournament, and every sort of day or two I'd go grab the album, open it up, look through the spaces and say, oh, that's a new sticker. Because before I would just have the name, the weight, the age, the team they played for. But I wouldn't know who that player was. But finally getting to see that face when the sticker suddenly appeared was awesome, And I remember some of the teams in that album. So it's going a bit off piece. This is probably more about the World Cup and the album itself.
That's what this is about. We go off piece.
Good. And you're probably thinking, why not have a Romario 94 Panini if that's the case? But I guess it's just more about the era. Because obviously then I finally got to see Romario in this World Cup, and it was just like, obviously Brazil went all the way. It was just like, they weren't the sexiest Brazil team, if we're being honest, sort of in hindsight, but he was just this like impish little striker who just moved not weirdly sounds sort of like I'm making fun of it, but he moved differently. This sort of little explosive player, toe punting in goal after goal. And if he wasn't like, obviously he wasn't the lone star of this tournament, there were those players I mentioned before, but it was just an amazing introduction into international football. Because like the Euros 92, I was a bit young. Champions League, I don't really have any memories of until after this World Cup. And that's where I'd like to bring Romario in again. There were these Man United VHS tapes, which I've spoken to you before about on Instagram. And because, I think they were quarterly. So through those videos, I would just, the same VHS tape, I'd watch probably, 20, 30 times each. Just keep watching them. And there was one where Man United were in the Champions League against Barcelona. I think it's a few months after this World Cup, 94.
Yeah.
And I think it's 4-0 Barca, and Romario and Stoichkov were just, like, they made Bruce and Pallister look like two sort of 40-year-olds. And again, it was just like, wow, I knew a bit about the Premier League, but like there's so much outside the Premier League, and this is interesting. And I guess Romario is the central figure of all of that.
Yeah, I think you raised some really, really interesting points, and they resonate with me a lot. I mean, the Manchester United on video, they were called, which my mum obviously bought them for me, and I would watch them as well. In addition to season reviews as well, because I got into football most probably. One of my first memories of football properly is actually Andy Cole missing chance after chance against West Ham. on the final day of the 95 season.
The 1-1 draw, yeah.
The 1-1, exactly. And my dad going absolutely mental, just getting really, really upset about it. I remember that quite vividly, even though it was the following season where then I started taking a huge, huge interest and getting really, really interested in it. And what an intoxicating season 95-96, in my opinion, probably the best Premier League season in many, many ways. Like the Ferguson versus Keegan thing, it was the advent of Sky. I've spoken about it before, the real advent of Sky, and we see sort of an insight into the personalities. But yeah, I mean, you also said about, and I've said it before as well, in the sense that the discovery, because of the internet, and we obviously have access to all these, transfer marked hot prospects in the unknown leagues and things, we can see them. And also, if you're engaged in the hobby as well, you like, oh, what's the rookie of that player? That's quite interesting. Is there, a rookie that I don't know about? Whereas back then, even I remember in 2002 with Ronaldinho, he was, now a player like Ronaldinho, the equivalent, would be getting so much hype. Yeah. But back then, maybe I was in a blind spot, I don't know. But before that World Cup, I think it's fair to say he didn't really have much traction, despite him being incredibly talented. I don't remember people speaking about Ronaldinho loads and loads and loads. And then he obviously exploded onto the scene in that World Cup. So, and that was even, I guess everything was a little bit more digitized then. So going back to 94, which I don't really remember, I must admit, it was probably way, way more marked. And players like Romario, Stoichkov, like you mentioned, Thomas Brolin, players like that, we were obviously, going to... Discovering them was probably fun and also a bit more novel.
Just going back to that album, the USA 94 album, like, I think the Dutch and the Colombia pages, some of those Dutch players look about 45 years old, like they've just come off tour with some heavy metal band. I can't remember. I think he's called Wolf or De Wolf or something. Maybe he's a defender, but there's no way he's in his like 20s or early 30s. And like the Colombia page with, it wasn't just Valderrama I think he's literally next to Valderrama in the album. His name is maybe Sanchez. He's got the massive moustache as well. It's just like, this is cool. Like, this is something, different compared to looking at Premier League albums.
Yeah. And Doug, you alluded to it, because obviously in many ways it would have been made sense for you to choose the USA 94.
Yep.
Romario sticker, maybe a interesting back variant of that or something. But why did you go for this sort of service line one over that?
So this is one I shouldn't go into detail of. This is kind of a placeholder until I find the bigger version. So there's a bigger version of this, which is like, I would get it graded if I found the bigger version, but they're proven really weirdly elusive. But no, for me, it's just such a classic image of, it's all I need. It doesn't need to be a perfect, I don't know, in a perfect world, they would have a numbered USA 94 set.
Yeah.
They've got all these upper deck cards, but like they are literally all base cards. So essentially I'm choosing between base cards. And for me, this is sort of the younger brother of the one I'd ideally want to end up eventually. But in a funny way, this reminds me of that one I want to end up with, even though I don't have it. So for now, this is the one for me.
Yeah.
And like, it's probably like, I don't know, you probably get it for 10, 20 euros on eBay, but I don't know, it just hits the spot. It's just a classic image. And probably part of it as well is because the Panini stickers are so plentiful and because I literally saw them as a kid. I know it's sort of contradicting that nostalgia factor, but because I saw so many of those stickers growing up, this sort of feels a little bit more special because I haven't seen it sort of 100 times on eBay or literally 100 times at the time at school with swaps and things.
Yeah,
I don't know.
It's a really nice image, and I don't know USA 94, the Panini album, that well actually. I obviously know some stickers, but I don't know it that well. I know. And the USA 94, obviously, so many things happen in USA 94. Escobar.
Oh yeah, geez,
Baggio, that god-awful mascot striker, who is the worst World Cup mascot I think there has ever been, in my opinion. But no, yeah, it's a great item, and I think it moves well. And I mean, your compilation of your list has been absolutely. You can tell so much thought has gone into it, because I think it leads on really well into the next item, and obviously a different player, but a similar theme of discovery and this weird novelty of this exotic type talent. And shall we have a little chat about your next item and obviously the next player and your memories, really?
So yeah, it's George Weah. I think it's a second year sticker. It's foot 91. As you see there with the top loaders reference, these sort of early to mid 90s Panini stickers are so nice and big.
Yeah.
They just really, they're perfect. Same as like the R9 rookie. But yeah, it's such a small detail, but it's green. Green's my favourite colour. I've said before, like, El Rey is a collector we all look up to because of his collection. Stuff, he'll give you all this information about it. But one of my favourite things he ever said was simply, this is green and green's my favourite colour. Like, that's it strips everything back. It's such a childish statement when you take a step back, but it's a factor.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is George Weah's. And a bit, yeah, ideally you would have something numbered or something cooler card, but for me, this is just perfect. And the reason, I guess, obviously I should bring up the reason, it's two things. It's nostalgia for Football Italia, the Channel 4 show, and weekends at my grandma's house, my English grandma's house. It's just those two things. And yeah, so I guess if anyone remembers his famous solo goal, so that was for AC Milan. I just have a really weirdly vivid memory of I know exactly where I was, exactly what position I was sort of sitting. And yeah, I just remember that goal weirdly vividly, where I think it's autumn 96. I did check before, and it's against again, this is a while since I looked at that. It was against Verona, I think. But yeah, it's the first time I'd ever seen a player pick up the ball, literally in his own box, dribble the whole way from one end to the other, score a goal, and it was just like until this is just pre R9. I hadn't really watched R9 at that time, even though he was doing stuff in the Netherlands at this time. But yeah, I had no idea what was going on there. So yeah, for me, this is like, wow, this guy's a superhero. He's literally run the entire length of the pitch.
Yeah, amazing player. We as in the Premier League caught the tail end of George Weah. Yeah. Chelsea and Man City, and it was, even though he didn't have the most success there, it was amazing to have him in the Premier League at that time. And he's actually got one of my favourite cards actually from Premier Gold 2001, which is one of the shorter printed parallels, is a star player insert from Premier Gold 2001.
Is that for Chelsea or Man City?
No, it's Man City.
Okay.
And the blue, I mean, Chelsea would work as well, to be fair, but the blue, I'll show it when I edit, but
cool. It's
such a cool colour match. It honestly looks so good. It's like one of the best looking, I think, Premier League cards, in my opinion, and I absolutely love it. And also, you mentioned about these personal memories and these personal recollections. That it's very evocative. And you mentioned as well about some of the things that you did, and then some of the stuff you associate with it as well, being at your grandmother's house, and then some of your other memories that you used to go and do at that time, maybe.
So I'm hoping it's the same with a lot of grandmas, and mine wasn't just this, like, instead of drug dealer, like a diabetes dealer. Like, you know, what's that gif? You know that Wolf of Wall Street gif or meme where the fun tokens?
Yeah.
She was like that with Kit Kats, just like, bang, you have or that, the Oprah Winfrey, you get this, you get
one.
She's you get a Dr. Pepper, you get a Dr. Pepper, you get a Dr. Pepper. See, obviously as a young kid, who didn't have too much access to treats like that at home, which I'm thankful for in hindsight, that my parents are quite good with keeping me on the healthy side of things. But just getting fed Kit Kats, Dr. Peppers, sitting down watching Football Italia, have a massive roast lunch, then would go out for a walk, because she lived in 2 houses when I knew her. Both were within like a minute or 2 walk of golf courses. So yeah, we'd just go out with her dog, have a walk, and it was just such a simple thing. But yeah, and I've got a little story I've actually never told anyone. It's hopefully not a pointless story, but about 10 years ago, I went to a job interview, and on the way home, I was on the train, and I was going through the station, which was right by her second house. It's called Moor Park Station. I think it's like northwest of London, near Watford. So yeah, I'm a Watford fan, unfortunately. And I got off the train. This was after she'd passed away, but yeah, I got off the train. So I'm in a suit. People seeing this are probably thinking, God, this guy always wears a suit. It's definitely the opposite case. But yeah, I got off the train and I went on one of these walks, basically, just on my own. Just went looking for golf balls on my own. In a full suit. If anyone saw me, they would have thought, like, this is some week 1 apprentice candidate having a meltdown or something. Just like wading through thorns and then randomly squatting down and going, Tight Lice 1 or whatever. Callaway 4000. But yeah, I just did that. But no, long story short, now instead of wading through thorns in a suit, I can just look at this and I get all the same memories without any of the ripped up trousers. But yeah, for me, it's a great looking sticker in my opinion.
Yeah.
It's just, and it's just all those memories of just awesome days at my grandma's house.
Yeah, it's an amazing looking sticker, and you mentioned about the slightly larger size as well, and I spoke about it in the final episode of the first season with Darren, because he chose the Roy Keane sticker from Football 93 as one of his choices, and there is something nice about the bigger sticker. It's just you get more of the kit. It just really pops really nicely. I mean, this design, obviously it's the year before, but it's quite a popular design because it's obviously the yellow border for Foot 92, and that's Zidane's,
yeah, which
is obviously a huge sticker in the hobby. So it obviously reminds me of that, but he's just got a great look to him. It's an amazing kit. You've got the old Adidas sort of crest.
Is it called trefoil or something?
Yeah, it is. And I love his chain as well. I love his chain. He looks so good. He looks so brilliant, and it's just like you say, it's a few years before 1996, but I think that time as well, 1996, the summer of 1996, was a very magical time for many reasons. That era for us. I mean, Euro 96. Just things like that, and it's just when we're all sort of really falling in love with football a lot of the time, and like making memories that will last a lifetime. That time.
I'm glad you mentioned the chain actually, because like Michael Jordan talking about that summer of '96, the Atlanta Olympics, Michael Johnson with his gold chain, and I guess a little segue back, his golden Nike spikes. George Weah he's probably the first player I remember to wear coloured boots. And I know that sounds probably weird now, where it's harder to find black boots now than coloured boots, but back in the mid-90s, it was like a big deal. His red... Yeah. I wanted to say Lotto, but I think they were Diodora. It's one of the Italian brands. But yeah, he had these red boots, and I was just like, well, you've got to be... Not to sound like an old English dinosaur, you've got to be a good player to pull this off, but... he filled those boots.
No, amazing player, and I can't remember what game it was. Now, I think I want to say it was a game called Three Lions, I think, on PlayStation, and it wasn't a very good football game. It was obviously released the same season as Road to World Cup, which for me is like the FIFA with Song 2 and everything, which is just the best FIFA. That memory of David Beckham on the front of the case and stuff. But that game was one of the first ones, I think, where some of the players had like white boots, and it was really, really cool for some reason. So you mentioning the coloured boots thing is cool. Now, obviously, they're 10 a penny, and I'd rather players just wear black boots. But you mentioned, and you spoke about players that are worthy of boots, and I'm not entirely sure what colour boots the next player wore, but and you did mention him earlier as well a little bit. But shall we have a chat about your next item and a card which I've seen before, and it's really a spectacular looking card. So should we have a little chat about?
So I guess like the first two, it's probably condition rarity rather than true rarity, but it's I don't know if you're going to reverse these on publishing, but
I'll bring it up.
It's the Eurostars insert from the Panini Calcio 97 set. But it's Ronaldo's lone Barcelona season, which for me is still my favourite season. Any player, I know there's been sort of what's the word I want? Whatever the opposite of subjective is. There's been better seasons. There's Messi's 91 goal. Actually, that's a calendar year. But there's been better seasons since. But this was a 20-year-old who to me was a new player. Well, this was his first club season I was a part of, put it that way. And it was just the most exhilarating thing. Like, I'm sure it's definitely down to my age at the time. If it happened again now, I'd be a bit more like, there wouldn't be that magic to it. But no, it was just the most incredible season. And for me personally, my dad had just taken a job in Belgium at the time, in Brussels. So we got whisked off as a family. So autumn 96. So the start of this season, this Barcelona season. And we weren't like refugees. There's no like genuine struggle about it. But for me, it was a very uncomfortable time just because, I'd grown up this place, this like village or this little town in England. I'd been there my whole life, and suddenly like banging off to Belgium. I don't know anything about Belgium. I literally don't know any people there. So it was a bit uncomfortable in that sense. But Ronaldo, literally those first few weeks I was there was when he just really started exploding. And I suddenly had all these new TV channels. One of them was CNN, which like that shouldn't be a good channel to have. It's a news channel for a kid. But every day, just after I came back from school, they had this show called World Sport, where it's just half an hour recap on everything that happened the day before. And these Ronaldo goals were just coming up like, it felt like weekly, but it can't have been the case. He can't be scoring these incredible goals every week, but it felt like for those first literally 2 or 3 months, like he really was. He was scoring these ridiculous goals where he'd get the ball on the halfway line and just, as if you'd created him on Pro Evo or FIFA and put all his stats as 99, he would just go boom. Like it would just explode through, finish in the corner. He probably had a chain at the time, jangling about, but just this insane player. And I guess I became aware of him a couple of months before this in those Atlanta Olympics, which you think now the players playing at the Olympics, it's like almost like it's not a big deal. I know in Brazil it's maybe more of a big deal, but you almost think, oh, why is he going? Like that's gonna annoy his club. Like it's almost beneath the, it's beneath the star player. But again, going back to that Romario sticker and the magic of being introduced to players via a tournament where everything's condensed, you've only got to wait like 2 more days or 3 more days to watch them again. And I was just like, the first bit of footage seeing Ronaldo, or maybe it was Ronaldinho in that tournament. I can't remember if it was that tournament or other internationals around then. Just like, this is my guy. Like this guy's something different, something completely intoxicating. And like, this is my guy. This is going to be my guy until he retires. there's going to be no new Ronaldo until he retires. Like, it's impossible. There's just something so incredible about this player. And yeah, that whole Barca season was like insane. And to go back to a previous episode, I think Darren correctly said Cristiano Ronaldo's had a better career. Like, I don't think you can argue with that, unfortunately, as much as I'd like to. But like my GOAT conversation, I would have a top three. I'd have Messi, Pele, and Maradona. I was going to say Mount Rushmore, but that's four heads. So imagine they're at this weird GOAT's dinner. They're the middle table, those three. And the point I want to make about Ronaldo is, I think after they've had their meal, he can walk up to that table and have a drink with those three, because like they know that, oh man, like you could have been here. And for me, that's enough. That potential, that I know it's unfulfilled promise, but a lot of it, but just the fact he could have been is enough for me.
Yeah, amazing player, scary player as well. Just to have to deal with him in his prime would have been absolutely. But
you literally have interviews. Sorry to interrupt you. You literally have interviews with like Desai, Nesta, where they were literally admitting they were scared of him the night before games.
Yeah, he was scary. He was very, very scary to have to handle, because he was the complete striker. Like, I'm Messi is for me the best. I don't think that's not a rare or uncommonly held view. Ronaldo is obviously incredible. R9, it was amazing as well. Just he could do. He was just very, very powerful, but also very skillful. And just remember like the step over stuff he was doing, then just bang the ball, and it's just really, really amazing player. And yeah, just I loved watching him play. It's sad in many ways, like you said, about his injuries. We've spoken about them before. But, you can't argue with him. And I mean, he won, well, technically 2 World Cup medals, obviously. World Cup winners' medals. But there's also the drama with him as well, which, the opera of the final in '98, stuff like that. Like, what happened, what actually happened, this weird season
things you maybe I only appreciate that post-career as an adult. Like, I knew his injury was bad, but when a player gets injured when you're a kid, you hear injury, you wait till they're back, you don't really delve any deeper into that, and you literally don't have the knowledge of, I know things were different then, like a cruise ship could finish you off, which is not the case now, but you just sort of wait till they're back. I didn't realize until his like documentary recently that he was literally going from doctor to doctor to find not just the best, but who would say you can still have a career. Apparently the first, it was either one or two, literally said like, to be honest, like, this is you done. We're just going to get you to a stage where you can like enjoy the rest of your life pain free. He was just like, no, try a new doctor, just till anyone would say. And then to come back and win a World Cup and a Ballon d'Or, like, that's nuts. To be literally defying doctors and being the best player in the world is nuts.
Yeah.
At 75% of himself.
No, it's absolutely crazy. And to go back to the item, and I think we're going to discuss it a bit more, this concept, in the final item actually. But the sort of this rookie versus moments thing, stuff like that.
Yep.
Because in many ways it might be easy to go to, say, the Estrellas Mundo or the football, or there's that really rare thing from like his time in Corinthians.
Yeah, the tiny head.
The 93 thing. But why this item over something slightly earlier? Is it just the Barcelona season, or is it more of a wider theme?
So for me, the rookie concept is not an instinctive thing. It's something I literally have allowed myself to inherit from America. Allowed myself to be influenced by, if you like. Because for me, the most instinctive thing is, and it's one thing why I don't really like post-career cards and stickers, is what's an image or what's an era where they were at their sort of it doesn't even have to be peak, just where they did something really cool. So yeah, for me, it's much more instinctive than rookies. Is like, yeah, seasons or competitions. And I know as a tickets man, you can literally hone in on one event. So yeah, obviously cards is a bit more limited in that sense. But yeah, it's purely something from that Barcelona season. So that funnels it down. And then I guess like a big doofus I got, it's the shiniest thing from that season.
They're really nice cards. They're like the speckle refractors in many ways that we see quite commonly now, especially in Merlin Chrome. But it's like a speckle refractor. It basically is actually, and it looks really cool. And yeah, I mean, I like debut tickets and things, but I've always been more geared towards moments. Always, if I think about David Beckham. I'm not. Like when I came in and started collecting tickets, I didn't want Brighton. Yes, I'm lucky enough to own one of the Brightons, but no, I wanted the halfway line and I wanted the Greece free kick over those. So. Yeah, the pro debut tickets are really nice, and the rookies are really nice. With cards, I think maybe mentally, because I think you said with tickets, you can home yourself in so much easier on an event. So in my mind, I'm like, well, if I want to represent something from that event in my collection, I'd always gravitate towards the tickets. Therefore, maybe with cards and stickers and things, I do kind of think, well, yeah, rookies are a bit more appropriate in some ways. But the concept of I will always go for like the moments that I remember, so, stuff like Wimbledon, like I said, or I think about other players that I really enjoy collecting. And I always tend to go towards the moments rather than debuts and rookies. It's just something I've always done. But yeah, and a great set, that set as well is something which, I really, really enjoy those cards, and I always like seeing the origins of more, even though modern stuff is kind of overprinted now and things, I always like seeing like origin cards from like what have influenced the modern sets and the modern designs. It's always quite cool to see them, and you can see them like going way back sometimes to like the 1900s even, and you can see the origins of like cards that then end up becoming quite commonly held designs, and I always think that's really cool. And I know we've seen that design quite a lot, but actually the next item I actually think is a very interesting one, because this kind of design is one that I haven't seen too often, and it's a set which I think, I mean, I don't own any of this set, but I know this set fairly well, and it's kind of something which it's one of the most like, I mean, in medicine, you have these things called like, if it's like pathognomonic of a certain condition, it's like someone presents with this sign, it is this disease or this condition. And this set, you could show me a picture of a card I've never seen from this set, and I would be able to tell it's from this set. It's a very unique looking set.
I get what you mean, yeah.
So shall we have a chat about your next item?
Because I don't know if they are sketches or actual, but I do know what you mean by that. Because it kind of has to be. So I've got a bit of glare, a rare bit of sunlight at the moment.
November in England.
Yeah, there's Paul Scholes' dad from the 60s, Bobby Charlton. And it's a Ferrero set from the 1966 World Cup, which obviously for Bobby Charlton was a big deal for England, thanks to a very, very questionable goal line decision. But we'll quickly, and apparently some slightly controversial things with the Portuguese team and buses and hotels, but we'll overlook that. But the reason, one, from the day one sort of getting back into cards, I was like, I'm going after, World Cup's my favourite tournament, I'm going after like a World Cup Golden Ball collection. So an item from the year that player not necessarily won the World Cup, but they were the sort of one of the big figures of that World Cup. And when I found out that Ferrero had this set. I was just like, this is too perfect because so Ferrero, the factory or the origin of the brand, which is now this crazy global mega brand, like worth billions and billions of billions, with things like obviously Nutella, but I don't know if a lot of people know Tic Tac. That's from this
Oh,
this
really?
town. It's from Alba, Italy, and yeah, that's where my wife happens to be from. This town in Italy, which is I guess is relatively innocuous. If I say Alba, probably most people outside of Italy haven't heard of it. It's maybe famous more for, well, apart from this, it's in like vineyard areas. So if you like red wine, it's I guess it's quite a big deal there. White truffles, which are like the Panini Obsidian cards. They're like the Contras. They're like, whoa, they're a little level above the blacks.
Yeah.
But yeah, this factory is like, it's like the lungs of this town, this Ferrero factory. And yeah, this just gives me an organic way to, I guess, bring my wife and her family and now my kid, I guess, blood-wise, into my collection, because otherwise they couldn't give a crap. They're just like, don't waste too much money that we can use on other things, but do your thing. But no, I can bring them in an organic way with a card I love as well, because I think it does tick that proper rarity box. Also condition rarity, it's the highest grade. But yeah, I don't really know what else to say to it apart from actually there is one thing. It's, you know how you prospect on rookies? This is like prospecting on a brand, because back in 1966, Ferrero was like, it probably wasn't that big. I think Nutella was 1964. I did research it when, they first started making jars of Nutella. But everything else like Kinder, Ferrero Rocher, Tic Tac, that all came later. So this is this tiny little brand that made this album, which the actual albums, they were inserted within Mickey Mouse comics. So that's another, I don't know if it's a lame factor, but quite a cute factor to me.
Yeah,
Adds a little
cool.
charm to the set. But yeah, it's like a prospecting gone right. It's like, this is Cristiano Ronaldo at Sporting, which became like, this is like Real Madrid Cristiano Ronaldo or something. It's now global mega brand.
Yeah. They're really cool stickers, cards, and so it's like an out. Have you ever seen the album at all, or what's
Yeah,
the
yeah.
album? Yeah.
So it's a bit of a shame. There's only, I think it's 6 players per country, and it's not every country in the World Cup. I think it's potentially only eight nations. I need to relook at that. But yeah, it's this really cute little album. And yeah, fortunately, Charlton's one of the England players there.
Yeah. I mean, it's a wonderful image. I mean, you did hint upon. I mean, the hue of his hair is probably not quite accurate, but I think that's more the
Yep.
kind of the bless you, sir. But it's kind of, the hue is a bit different, but they're just amazing. They almost remind me of pastel, like they've been sketched or something with pastels or something, and amazing image of
Fortunately, the name's right. The Beckenbauer, he's called Willy Beckenbauer. I don't know if you've ever seen that one.
Yeah, and I don't think I've ever noticed that actually, but it's
Well, sometimes they mix up Jack and Bobby Charlton, which fortunately they haven't, because as much as it adds to the charm, it's good to have the actual name correct. If that makes...
No, yeah, it's great image, and obviously a very, very significant year for Bobby Charlton. One of the greatest English players of all time, and he had an amazing tournament that year. But yeah, just I do really would like to get at least one. Like I've like considered the Leviashin on a few occasions. They've been like listed on like the artist formerly known as PWCC auctions before, and I've kind of like been tempted and things, but sometimes with these things, well, it sounds so silly, but I think it was kind of just like after I'd kind of sent something from the vault, like a huge batch of things to the vault, and then it's like a decision on, do I want to start a new batch of things again? And like, because I don't really like holding things in vaults. I always want to bring things home.
Yeah,
that's always what I prefer. So then it's like,
I'll touch on that later, I think. But yeah, sorry.
Am I like going to like retire a bit from PWCC Fnatic? So I kind of think I've like, and also can I be bothered to like bid on this item, on this week thing? And there's so many things that we look at, we buy, but I think the Yashin, the Charlton, Bobby Moore doesn't have one.
It's such a shame.
Yeah, because I would have obviously gone for the Bobby Moore if there was one, but
it's strange when you think it, like
really strange.
I get 92. He was kind of, I don't think he was named in the squad initially or something like that because he was really young. But by 66, he should be there. Like, it's such a shame.
Because he's got, I mean, one of his rookies, which is it my favourite one? Probably my favourite one by appearance, the San Giorgio 1960 or 1963, which is kind of obviously based on the 1962 World Cup squad appearers.
Yeah.
So it's weird that the captain wasn't there, and he'd won the Cup Winners' Cup with West Ham and all this stuff. So it's weird, and it's such a shame as well, because that for me would be like something which I would have. I think I would have it because I would have prioritised it so heavily. So it's a huge shame that he's not included in the list. I don't know why that would be.
I never really thought about it until you just pointed out now. Yeah, I'd never thought. Yeah, just everyone aside from Charlton, it was just kind of a blur to me. But yeah, it's crazy now you bring it up that he's not there.
It's something which I've thought about a few times, not for a few months. I was like, why on earth is there not a Bobby Moore in this?
Next time I'm going past the factory, I'll throw a little stone at it for you.
Yeah, no, please do, please do. But it's okay. I got over it. I mean, Bobby Moore's got lots of other cool items to collect. He's one of the most well represented in cardboard, I think, of all those players from England, actually, through the 1960s and into the 70s. So, but I would have loved a Ferrero for Bobby Moore. I'm sure he would have looked very ginger as opposed to blonde.
Yeah, true. Yeah,
but I could have done with that. But maybe it's one of the customs to ask someone to do a Bobby Moore Ferrero mock-up or something like that would be quite cool. But yeah, and I mean, we're actually we're not completing the Holy Trinity this Desert Island Slabs episode, but the next item is another Holy Trinity member, and it's another very, very recognisable set, I would say, through its appearance, although it's a set I'm not quite as familiar with. So should we have a chat about your next item? So it's a set I don't really, not that I let myself get influenced, but I don't really see pop up on Instagram a lot, or I follow a fair amount of people, and I guess it's quite a lone quest to go after it. This is it. The pump starts now. Yeah. But what I like about this is I don't really have to sell it. It's just the first Panini set, like, done. And I guess you've got options of players to go after in that set. You've got like Ballon d'Or winners that year, the year before, Sivori and, checking my notes, who is it? Luis Suarez. Yeah. And Dino's Off's rookie, I think, is in that set. Is that correct? Or is it the year after? I can't remember. I'm not sure, but it's Mantova, isn't it? Yeah, I'm not sure off the top of my head about Zoff. But yeah, you've got, I guess, other Italians. You've got Rivera, an early Rivera. You got John Charles for Brits. Yeah. I think that's Juve. Then he went to Roma, I think the season after. But yeah, for me, when I sort of decided I wanted a sticker from this set, it had to be Denis Law. I guess with that little Man United link growing up, those amazingly literal videos, Manchester United on video. I love how there's nothing creative in those names. It's just say what it is. Yeah. It's Ron Seal. That's a very British reference, but yeah. Yeah. That's what it says on the tin. It's just so clean, and I think the only way it could be better for me is if it had a cool back. Unfortunately, they're blank. Mm. But yeah, Denis Law at Torino. There's a lot of story behind. Like, he's a player which
unfortunately links sort of two air disasters. I think everyone's well aware of the Man United one, which wiped out the 58 team, was it? The Busby Babes.
Yeah.
But yeah, what they may not know is Torino had just won the league 5 years in a row in Italy until they had their own air disaster, which, then wiped out, most of the team. They then got relegated. Fortunately, they got it back together again, and they got promoted just in time for this set. Denis Law joined them. Wasn't maybe the best time there. What I'd maybe link it to is maybe Michael Owen at Real Madrid. He still had a respectable amount of goals, but from what I've read, it was clear he's sort of homesick. And I think the fact there's fresh vegetables in Italy must have really thrown a Scot. So that I can understand why he struggled. But no, to be more serious, I think that tough time probably added a bit more resilience to him. That's just me guessing, like long term, because a couple of years later, suddenly he explodes and wins a Ballon d'Or with literally a goal a game, or just over a goal a game, I think. And I checked with only like 1 or 2 penalties, which for me makes it much more pure. And so he was part of, I guess, 2 rebuilds after air disasters. But maybe not as much as ideal in Torino. He was only there for 1 season, but just in time to be there for this set, which...
And Doug, before we move, we'll speak a bit more about Denis Law, because obviously I have no issue speaking a bit about Denis Law and, Manchester United and the Holy Trinity. But it's interesting you bring up the Supergar. Obviously my pronunciation is probably off, because there's actually something in that album as well that references this.
You're right.
This air disaster. So it's interesting that he does have that bridge between the Supergar and Munich, like you mentioned. And Denis Law, Denis Law's an interesting one, isn't it? Really, because he's obviously so well known, but it's not an unfair thing to say that he kind of is in the shadow of the other 2 members of the Holy Trinity.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Which is weird, because he's obviously such a huge... If you were to... Maybe top 10 Man United players of all time. Definitely top 20. But he's kind of like the third one. He's like Ringo, in a way, because he's not George Best or Bobby Charlton.
Yeah.
And that's kind of, very interesting, actually, because he was such a huge player. And I think that he only had 1 season at Torino, and then he went to Man United and obviously became a Ballon d'Or winner. A huge part of the rebuild, culminating in Wembley in 1968, and Denis Law is and this card, this sticker, is an amazing looking sticker as well, and it's inspired me to almost want this Denis Law one. And I've said before about being influenced things for themes and things like that, which I generally tend to get influenced by. It's like, oh, that makes me want to collect this because it's set off this synaptic collection in my mind, but this is a rare thing where actually, no, I've seen this. I was like, no, I actually want that exact one. I really want that. It's essential for me to kind of want to get that Denis Law sticker, because it's amazing looking. There is, again, would you mind bringing it up? Is that all right?
Yeah. So
it just looks so good.
I think it's a harsh 3. I think that I was expecting about a 5, because it's really crisp corners. Yeah. What I will say is it's like a blemish on his chin, his neck, but they all have it. It's like a lighter bit of skin.
Mm.
But it's just no frills, but in a good way.
No.
Just clear colours, and it's size-wise, it's a nice big sort of sticker. So you see, it really fills the slab there, compared to like a new World Cup sticker, for example.
And you said you wanted a sticker from this set.
Yeah.
And so have you gone off trying to get other ones, or is that something you feel like you've scratched the itch, you're slaked, you're satiated now, and then that's it? I've done that set.
Yeah. I haven't, because I know it's a slippery slope. I know if I go for like John Charles, that suddenly I'll be like, bang, Rivera, even players like Hitchens. I think he was a Villa, went on to play for Villa. But yeah, I don't like having too much stuff, which sounds stupid when you're collecting cards. But yeah, I like to keep things quite trim. So yeah, one and done, I think. I don't wanna open that box.
No, and yeah, I think distilling collections and focus is something which I've really tried to work on as well. And the last few months, I've kind of been, thinking about what I value, what I want, and I think we've said before off air about when you join something, you're on this huge bulk where you're like kind of like you're collecting all this stuff and you're like bulking and you're like working out. But then actually, when you get a few more years into it, you're like, well, actually, maybe I want to be a bit healthier in some ways. It's not so good to be bulking all the time. So I'm going to go on a bit of a cut, a bit of a trim, really analyze almost every item in my collection and think, does this really do something for me? What's the impact it has on me? And then move it on. So then you've got stuff, you've got maybe money or space, sometimes literal space, to be like, well, then you can really target specific things. But when you first join, when you first enter, it's this huge bulk type thing, which I think a lot of us have done because, we get excited. We're like little boys in a sweet shop, where we just can't help ourselves a lot of the time. And what an amazing item. And it's interesting you say that. I think Zoff's rookie is in this one, or maybe the next one, I can't remember, but it is a set you don't see that often, considering it's the first set, and first sets are so popular in narratives and things like that. And it's a great segue into the next item, because that is a first set that is probably the set I've seen the most, at least definitely older sets, the most set I've seen the most. So should we have a chat about the next item, which is from a first set as well?
So a full 9 years later, probably responsible for sort of brushing the law under the carpet a bit. It's the first Panini becomes first Panini World Cup.
Yeah.
And this is maybe people are expecting to see my Pele, which I've probably posted like 10 times in different formats over the last sort of 5 years, but it's actually Jairzinho. It's a green back, which I think is the back you're meant to feel is most common and therefore less desirable, but it's green. It's the Italian one. It ticks my boxes. It's my favourite back. And yeah, so this was the first ever Mexico 70 card that I personally bought. When I bought it, I didn't actually know they were cards in terms of stock. I just assumed, I hadn't really sat down and thought about it. It was like €7. I'm like, just buy it, worry later. But yeah, I thought maybe it's a adhesive peel, but no, it arrived and it might as well have come out in a ray of light from this little envelope from Italy, because it just immediately just hit the spot. In terms of size, it was a bit bigger than I imagined. It's bigger than the more modern Panini World Cup stickers.
You like big, Doug?
Big, but fit in a slab. I don't want any surfboards. I'm surfboard free, and yeah. But yeah, it just hits the spot in terms of design. And like I said, I don't really have to sell it. Maybe you have to sell the player a bit, but the set is just, it's the first. It's the first of something that's become like a global event every 4 years. And then, yeah, but I guess I do want to sell the player a bit. Like, for me, his record of scoring in every game in a victorious World Cup is awesome. Like, how ridiculous is that?
Yeah.
It's something no one's done since. And yeah, who knows, with the World Cup expanding to like, is it 48 teams in 2026?
Yeah.
That's going to add another round, and then who knows how big it's going to get. It's going to get really hard for anyone to ever do that.
Yeah. Amazing item, amazing set. I mean, it's obviously so well regarded as a set, and it's kind of you don't see it because I think collectors know about its worth, but you do kind of see, not backlash, but you do kind of see sometimes I think people get a bit bored of it sometimes, but
Yeah, yeah.
I will
get you.
never get bored of this set personally, looking at it, and something which I'd love to be able to do one day is to complete all of the World Cup albums completed, as in just like not loose. That would be such a weird. That'd be impossible, and I think it would go probably into the six figures. Well, probably not that much trying to do that, but I would love a completed album of all the World Cup albums that are done, and 1970 would be the absolute centerpiece of that set, because it's so. They just look so good because they're like photos, but they've got this like sketchy type appearance to them in a way. I don't know what they did with it exactly, but they just look amazing. And I love the some of the other cards from the sets as well, from the set as well. The previous top scorer ones, like the historical ones,
right, yeah.
the previous winner ones, the England 1966 ones. So cool. It's a set. It's almost difficult to talk about it so many ways because it's so well known by collectors.
I'll add another layer that's not set specific. It's the highest graded copy for this back. And I graded this in 2020, and it's still hanging on as the highest graded, which it's only a 7. So I know it's going to be trumped, but every sort of Monday morning I'll have a quick look at the pop report on my phone. I'll do a little nothing big, just a little Tim Henman, one of the lamer celebrate
Tiger Tim.
But yeah, it's just hanging on. And I don't know if you know, there's actually 2 7s now. About a year ago, another one popped up. Oh, what's his name? His name's Leo. He's Panini Vibes, who's
Leo Recker.
Yeah, he is he's the king of finding sourcing high grade stuff.
Yeah.
He's got the other 7 actually. But I feel like I've survived him. Until he really focuses on this set, then I might be in trouble. But it is just hanging on in there. And it shouldn't be a big deal because it doesn't change the card. But I love the fact it's the highest graded. And it's just...
Yeah, no, why wouldn't you, to be honest? It's something which is nice when you have the highest graded one of something, or you've got a pop one. It's just a really nice feeling sometimes.
And actually, sorry to interrupt, you'll get this as a Beckham collector. It was his shirt number 7. I know that's not a thing, like shirt number grades, but like the R9 was a 9. It is to me. It's a little 5% flourish.
Yeah, and he was the player. I mean, it's hard because he scored in every round, but he was tackled by Bobby Moore, wasn't he? Jairzinho.
Yeah, most people think Pele. It's their sort of. It was that Premier League referee who we say the accidental racist, who I think he mixed up Oxlade-Chamberlain and Kieran Gibbs, I think. I think Andre Mariner.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of people were accidental Andre Mariner this and think it was Pele. But yeah, that just clean tackle was on Jairzinho.
Yeah, a great item. And yeah, long may your highest graded continue as well. I mean, 7's quite vulnerable to the elements, but
exactly.
You'll probably, you'll still love it, and you're not going to ever do the Desert Island Slabs again after this. So
I feel like it survived Leo. That's like Jonah Lomu running at you in the grading state, and I've sort of remember that Gladiator's gauntlet.
And the Jairzinho.
I've somehow bounced off Leo Recker.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true.
So who knows? Let's see.
Yeah. So I mean, we're sort of coming to the end. We've got 2 more items left now, and the next item is a very interesting one because it's a very well-known player. But for your penultimate item, it's actually a set which I'm not that well versed in Spanish stuff, to be honest. But it's a set which I actually had never seen before. But it's a truly great-looking set, I think. And should we have a chat about your next item and a bit about the player as well?
So yeah, for full openness, I'm not that well versed in Spanish stuff, and it's purely bought for the looks, as we'll maybe get onto. But yeah, it's a Alfredo Di Stefano 1954-1955 season, La Colonial. It's the second year at Real Madrid, but the first release of this set. It's a chocolate set from Madrid.
Yeah, it's really great looking.
And it is actually album removed, but as you can see, it's... So I stay away from album removed stuff, but this was so minor and just such a sort of opportunity I had to take, because he's not actually a player I collect, even though I recognise 100% that I've talked about that central table in the GOAT conversation. He'd be on sort of the second table with, for me, Cristiano, Cruyff, Di Stefano. They would be on like their own little table.
So he's allowed to come and have a chat in between one of the courses, to come and have a little chat, maybe.
I think he would, because, yeah, if you see what Charlton said about him, Pele said about him, you never know how real these online quotes are. You know, is it fake news? But yeah, from what I gather, because I guess I should mention that my collecting, I only go for stuff TV era onwards, because I need to see footage of a player. I need to get a proper feel. I need to understand how that player played. For me, reading about like even amazing story, like pre-war, the most crazy, wild stories about players, they are cooler stories, but I need to see a player in action to really understand them. And yeah, I guess Di Stefano's sort of, I guess a bit like Pele, he's on that precipice. I don't know a word. My brain's not working today, but yeah, he's on that sort of TV era precipice where there is footage, but it's not necessarily full games. Yes.
Yeah. No, it's. Yeah. No, I feel the same as well. I'm probably even a bit later in the sense that I tend to focus on Premier League, just kind of that era. That's kind of what I've homed in on, and then some other random bits and bobs that take my fancy for pretty much arbitrary reasons a lot of the time. But yeah, it's a very interesting item. Again, it's kind of got that almost pastely like look to it, and it's obviously got the slightly questionable word on the front now, but we'll gloss over that.
Yeah.
And we'll just go on the actual font itself. Looks really nice, I think. And I think as well, when it's like in a chocolate, I like stuff that, like, I mean, obviously it's so common in the older years, but stuff that came in chocolates and stuff, it's quite cool, because you can really like imagine, you know, a Spanish boy or girl opening that and getting this card, and then yeah, it's really, really nice looking. I don't know too much about the set, but it's really great looking. I really hate album removed stuff, and I will use the word out. I really try and avoid it if I can. It's something about it just goes through me. But when it's not obvious, I can live with it. Or if I can't get it in another way, you know, it's something which
It's a funny thing, because yeah, I stay away from album removed normally, because it means within, like, if there's ever any value to it, people are just going to suddenly remove all of them from the album. Suddenly there's hundreds. There's zero rarity to album removed. Most of the rarity is you peel the sticker, you stick it in.
Yeah.
For some reason, even album removed, these are just like, where are they all? It's really strange. Okay, it's not Panini, it's not a huge brand, it's a chocolate brand with a questionable name, which, yeah, it's something I haven't really explored out of almost denial, because it's so nice. Like, I wouldn't. This is obviously a joke. I would almost buy an Adolf Hitler in this design, but obviously not the case.
Okay.
But no, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, it's a potentially questionable
YouTube's
company.
going to ban this when they see the transcript. They're going to be like, oh no, this is some sort of pro.
But no, obviously not. But
no.
I forgot what I was saying. That was too cheeky. Where was I going with that?
You like it so much that you would buy questionable things.
Well, I guess that, but no, I haven't explored that. Yeah, how much this chocolate company may have exploited, you know, the origin of this cocoa. But no, sorry, album removed. For some reason, part of my love of this is there's only 2 or 3 other people I know who have one, and one of them is El Rey. One of them's Seb, I believe it is, who's sort of an American Armenian collector who's just amazing, like awesome, funny guy with an amazing collection. And in a funny way, I like that. I would rather those two have one as well than I'm the only one who has one, even though it would be worth more because I was the only one who has. I like that little club, if that makes sense. I want to throw in, there's a Swedish phrase called, I've written it down, delad gladja, which translates as shared joy, which is like two people having the same item doubles the joy of having that item. And for me, that genuinely is the case for sharing with two collectors I really, really, really like, look up to and respect.
Yeah.
And yeah, for whatever reason, even album removed, these copies don't seem to pop up.
No, it's yeah, and I get that as well. I'm not particularly like, oh, someone's found another one of something, and I like it. Say, for instance, I feel the same with my Shane Warne Ball of the Century ticket. PJ, who's one of my very good friends, managed to find one, and it's a great feeling. It's not like, oh no, I've lost the only one that's been unearthed. It's just an amazing feeling when someone you really respect and admire gets one as well.
Yeah.
And also maybe subconsciously it's like, they're not going to like go and like, try and flip it or sell it or whatever and stuff. This is like quite safe. This is being held. It's not something we're going to see, all the time change hands and stuff. It's something like that, and I think that also factors into it as well for me. That sort of, it sounds really gatekeepy, but that custodian element of things, which I find quite interesting as well.
Yeah.
But it's a questionable name.
Well, I'm glad you've even brought that up because it's something that was in my head and no one's really brought up. The Colonial is not an ideal word necessarily. Same as empire, But no, in as much as it dents this item potentially, I'm glad it's been brought up. I've never heard anyone sort of even question it.
Yeah, no, it's and I think as well it's something which, obviously, I mean, you've spent a time in Belgium, and I mean, there's lots of things that King Leopold does, and there's an amazing book called King Leopold's Ghost by Adam Hochschild from the end of the 1990s, an incredible book that I'd recommend to anyone. But it's, I think, in obviously almost these such heinous acts took place, but it's only really, obviously, that it's only really in the last 20 years or even 10 years where the word colonial has had issues with it, and rightful issues as well. And a lot of these exploiters, because I grew up on the border of Herts and Essex in a well, not in, but the nearest town to where I grew up is a town in Hertfordshire called Bishop Stortford. And actually, we used to do our like concerts and galas in a place called the Rhodes Centre, named after Cecil Rhodes, who was an absolute tyrant, and that name was only changed relatively recently. Yeah. So it's amazing how long all this stuff went on for. And I remember even up to 10, 15 years ago, like M&S were releasing like their ready pies, like called colonial pies and things. So it's only in the last few years that this word has rightfully been banished, actually.
Yeah.
So it's interesting, and it's always, you always have to be careful about what you say, because some people will criticize whatever you say, but it's I think it's right that word is now not really used quite so much, and there are some other instances as well where that word has been used, which I won't go into. But it's interesting because it's a remnant from the past, and I don't think it's offensive seeing this chocolate thing. And it may have just been a name. Who knows how they source the cocoa beans?
Yeah.
And it doesn't take away from the item. In fact, it doesn't add to it. That sounds a bit
of course,
mawkish, but it's an interesting fact that it says that, I think.
Yeah. Can I add one thing?
Yeah.
So I want to talk about utility in cards. It's something you mentioned before about with PWCC and always wanting to deliver the cards back. You want them in hand, and I'm exactly the same. And I just wanted, with this card, I wanted to talk about utility in the sense that So a lot of people like who flip cards, if they buy it and sell it for the same price, they would say that, you're not up. And if it's over the course of like 5 years, you're literally down if you include inflation, blah, blah, blah. But I think that completely ignores utility, because like I would genuinely pay £1 every time I wanted to look at this card. And I've looked at this hundreds of times since I've had it. So I'd be another £200 into this, but I genuinely would. So if it's like a little museum, pay your £1, have a look. And for me, there is a lot of utility in cards like this. And I know it's easy to say when you don't have anything worth enough to put in a vault, which I don't. But for me, I have to have my cards like in hand and with easy access.
No, exactly. And maybe that's naive, and I know it's not a particularly investment driven thing, and I know that there are some items I have that I probably should have in storage for insurance purposes or climate control purposes or whatever. But for me, I always, they're not in my flat here, but I would always rather have them accessible so I can look at them and I can just open them, have a look at them. And that may be a simp thing to say, but it's my truth, where I always want to be able to see my items that I can see, because I get such joy from having a look at them and seeing like something. And if I don't get joy from it, then maybe I'll put it in a vault, or I'd probably just sell it. It's just, that's how I feel. So I feel the same. So that is with the importing thing as well. That has influenced my decision. And sometimes where I'm like, well, if I do this Fanatics thing or PWCC, how long am I going to keep it there before I can get it in hand? Like, because then I have to think, would it be economical to get it to ship my cards so then I can, merge everything and then bring it home? So then it has put me off sometimes bidding for some stuff in PWCC and Fanatics, definitely. But that's just, I feel the same. I want my item in hand as well. It's just how I feel.
Yeah, 100%.
A simp maybe, but that's how I am.
Nah.
But no, Doug, we're coming to the end. We're coming to the end of this desert. I mean, this has been really, really great, this episode, and it's been a fantastic way to get back in to recording for the second season. But we're now going to finish with a set again. I didn't really think about it actually, but another first set, another set we've seen a lot actually. But it's a player who I think is underrated, hugely underrated in my opinion, for his impact, at least in the British Isles, and again, such a significant year for him as well, which we can talk about a bit more, which we spoke about earlier. But shall we have a chat about your final item to round off Doug Slabs?
I'm glad you used the word simp, because maybe this is my simp choice to finish. But
everyone has to have a simp choice with Desert Island Slabs. That's a new mandatory thing.
Is it my first numbered? Yeah, it's the first numbered item. It is a Gareth Bale 2017-2018 UEFA Champions League gold out of 50 auto. If I'm completely honest, the auto for me doesn't really add anything unless it was on card. But the fact we talk about tickets can hone in on items where cards can't. This does, relatively speaking, hone in on a moment to me, which is the whole reason I have on this card, is his overhead kick in the final of this specific Champions League.
Incredible goal.
Just a crazy, and it was at a moment where, I mean, it's still that I'm kind of not falling out of love with football, but falling out of love with all the nonsense attached to football. All the money, they're just basically everything outside of the pitch is just ridiculous, and that outside of the pitch unfortunately affects on the pitch, with like teams like Man City having 10, 60 million pound players on the bench. Just kind of ruins the on pitch as well. If you have a manager as good as Pep who can put it into action. But just this goal of Bale at a time when I was like, oh man, like bring back 90s football, bring back Premier League 90s football. And Bale just scores this goal, and it's like, that's why I watch football. Like, that's why I fell in love with the game. Everything else is irrelevant. So it was like a needed kick in the eyes, an overhead kick to the eyes to like, this is why I watch football. And yeah, maybe as much as anything can, this alludes to that goal. And this, every time I look at it, I'm seeing that overhead kick. I'm seeing Marcelo's cross. I'm seeing Zidane do his like Arjen Robben, like, ooh, like celebration.
Yeah.
And yeah, I don't know what else to say, but you are right in the intro saying that I'm not going to say like underappreciated, underrated, but I think purely because the way his career ended, same as Eden Hazard, same as, I don't know if Pogba's career has ended, who knows, to be continued. But yeah, maybe Eden Hazard's a better comp in that sense, that it was such a shame, the decline, such a slow, painful, is he injured, is he just giving up sort of decline, that yeah, I think Bale gets forgotten about. But if you watch like a lot of football will live on YouTube compilations or whatever the new website or social media network. What's the word I want? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Bale's YouTube compilations are going to be like, they're going to live on. Because that final season at Tottenham, his first couple of seasons at Real Madrid, goals like this. And yeah, that's why I wanted to finish on this card, even though I'm not necessarily a modern collector. Just because, yeah, this card gives me good vibes.
Yeah, and I think this is a great card. I really like Chrome 2017, although we've obviously seen it a lot, and I think it goes on to what, I know it's just the first thing, but for me, the first of something is not actually sufficient for me to want something. Sometimes if there's an absence, I mean, I think the reason I collect a player, or the reason I want to collect a player, means that I will associate something with them, to be honest. But say, hypothetically speaking, that there was or sometimes there are some players that there's not an appropriate thing to collect because they're not very well represented for whatever reason. And then in my mind, sometimes I will go to their 2017 Chrome, or their Prism, or Prism 2014, or their like first Premier League sticker, or something like that. That's what I will go to.
Yep.
But most of the time, it needs to have more than just the first. But sometimes when it has that first thing, that's a wonderful kicker. So like you said, this card for Bale is such an important one because of that final, which was actually as well, it's funny and interesting you say that as well, because this is a final that I remember very fondly. And I can't say that for a lot of Champions League finals since. I'm trying to think of one Champions League final since that I have actually enjoyed, and I'm coming up short. But 2019 was the worst match I've ever in my entire life, and the Tottenham Liverpool one, with that stupid handball in the first few minutes, and I was just like, come on, it's ruined the match. It's Tottenham are Tottenham, so they're going to obviously sulk when that goes wrong in the first few minutes, and it's just going to ruin it. But then actually every other Champions League final after that, I can't remember a good one. Maybe I'm missing out something, but this one was great. Obviously, there was the unfortunate subtext with Loris Karius and his weird errors, which have added another flavour to it. But I also remember it being quite a good match as well. And the crowning moment was this incredible goal by Gareth Bale. He obviously scored earlier with that Karius moment, but this goal, 10 goalkeepers wouldn't have been able to save that. And the technique to do that, such a pure connection, such great technique. It was just such an amazing goal. And therefore, to go back to what I was saying, in the sense of, yes, it's the first, but this has the significance of that season as well. And the gold refractor appearance of it, it's just, they are really nice cards.
I have the same, you try and, it's like icing on the cake, but you try and get as many things ticked as possible. And for me, this is more the design than the fact it's a first, but the fact it's a first is another tick. First tops chrome. Because if this was the season after design, and he did what he did the season after in the Champions League, I'd still go after this instead of his other tops chrome, even though it wouldn't be the first.
Exactly. Because
the design it's perfect, it's clean, and it's something we're not going to get in terms of set dynamics, we're not going to get that until the hobby burns down again and then can rise from the ashes and have truly collectible cards, because there's like 6 parallels, I think, only.
Yeah.
I mean, 6 to me is quite a lot. That should be on the high end of things, but it's full color bleed, only like 6 parallels, 100-player checklist. I've seen people opening packs. Remember that guy? I think his name's Court. I can't remember his his sort of social media handle, but he was just opening boxes and boxes and boxes and boxes, and you're seeing the hits are quite. Back in the day, you'd only need to buy 1 or 2 packs to actually get a coloured parallel.
Yeah.
Like it wouldn't be like you buy an entire box to get 1 card out of 399. Like every pack would have a refractor or something good. But yeah, unfortunately, the hobby is going to have to kind of, as I said, burn down to get back to that. It has to die for the sort of for the manufacturing companies not to want to overprint and cash in as much as they do now.
Yeah, it is amazing that, I mean, I don't keep track with all modern sets. Well, I keep track with barely any, but it's amazing how many sets they release. And I most don't want to chat about sets, but sometimes I see these sets, they come out and they've given this weird name as well. Like, I can't even remember what the one I saw, and I was just like, that just doesn't sound very good. But yeah, this set is amazing, and it's got some great cards in it. I mean, it's got Mbappe's rookie card, or one of the rookies for Mbappe, which I think elevates it. And just a word about Gareth Bale. He's a player like I think the Hazard comparison is so interesting, because there's actually a video that I've written, haven't filmed, maybe will film, called Hobby-solescence, which is obviously obsolescent players in the hobby. And I haven't filmed it, one, because of time, but also two, I don't want it to. I try and steer away from undervalued stuff on my sports compendium, or saying something's undervalued, and that in many ways that's kind of what that video would be saying. But Bale and Hazard I consider a bit hobby-solescent, because if you imagine, say that the hobby explosion was in 2012, 2013, imagine the hype that Bale and Hazard would be getting from the hobby is insane. But now they're kind of forgotten about, and I think that slow fade tapering of their career is a large comparison of it, because you see some players now that get, I mean, it's cooled down a bit, but players like, say, Garnacho, or players like Jeremy Doku at one point, 3-4 years ago, and it's just they nothing on Gareth Bale or Eden Hazard when they broke through, absolutely nothing. And both of those players would be so lucky to have a career that either Bale or Hazard have had. So yeah, it's Gareth Bale. I mean, like you say, he's got so many amazing moments. I remember moments like, that Coppa del Rey 2014 final where he just goes
off the
pitch and just absolutely. I think it was Mark Barcher that he completely just out-henched, outpaced. Then also goals like Bale scored. I remember a goal against Stoke in 2010. It's incredible where he gets his foot up just so high and just kind of slices it, but just and then they're the things that I would go for with Bale, where I'm like, I need that goal, I need that ticket. Do you know what I mean? I want that ticket from that goal. I think it was 2-1 to Spurs, but just these amazing memories that these players have provided, and the same with Hazard as well. His goal against West Ham, his solo goal against West Ham, his kicking the ball boy, stuff like that is the kind of thing that then you can just go on this incredible journey with these players and try and collect appropriate cards, appropriate tickets, and
it's what's the phrase? The streets won't forget. Gets attached to those players.
Exactly.
That's what the kids are saying now.
The streets won't forget, and Hazard and Bale are two players that they definitely won't forget. And I don't think we're of the streets, but we also definitely won't forget them. And I think that the appropriate cards as well, something I always, because I love Jamie Vardy as well, as you probably know, but he's got earlier match attack stuff from Championship matches, but a lot of his rookie stuff is considered to be 2014-15, Leicester's first year in the Premier League. But I will always go to the year after. and Leicester's title-winning season
Yeah.
for Jamie Vardy stuff. To me, it's like I would always prefer the Leicester title-winning year to the 2014-15 stuff, even though obviously because it's just obviously so relevant that was a moment that happened when Leicester won the league, and 2017-18, and it's the icing on the cake, like you said, that Bale scored that goal in that year. And an amazing design. Topps Chrome 2017 is something which, it is a great set. It is a great set. Yeah, an amazing way to round off. Is there? Yeah, we've discussed all the items, Doug.
It's all 8.
That's
good timing, because my paracetamol is definitely running out of juice.
Yeah, but so I mean, thank you so much for coming on, Doug. I mean, we speak a reasonable amount anyway, and we speak about some. We haven't spoken. I mean, we can speak another time about customs and stuff like that, because we both love talking about custom cards and stuff like that. But is there anything you want to say about the items we've discussed that we maybe haven't spoken about, or something in general comments that you want to speak about?
I should have thought about this, but to be honest, no. I guess a general point about my content, my social media posts, I always post stuff from a sort of, with the little I know, protect the buyer perspective. And that means sometimes I might step on toes of things you own or players you love, saying like, be careful buying this player, like wait a few years. But it's purely like thinking about just people not like saving people money effectively. And that in that sense, it is from an investment point of view, not a collection point of view. Because obviously collect, buy what you like, buy what makes you happy. But yeah, some things I've posted in the past over the years and being like, oh, I feel genuinely bad if a Rashford like collectors read what I've written. But the intent was purely just people not to get burnt, so they have more money to buy things they love.
No, yeah, no, exactly. And I've always enjoyed your posts. So I remember you had a bee in your bonnet about St. Pele's the 1970 World Cup for a while, I think. And
I still do, yeah.
Yeah. And you were questioning some of those, and that was sort of a common theme. And it was, but I think it. I think sometimes with all things, like, you make a comment and sometimes people are rubbed up the wrong way because they don't necessarily look into what you're saying. They feel threatened because they have a personal stake or personal agenda in something. And that's always the way, but that's fine. At the end of the day, ultimately, your posts come from trying to protect buyers, I think.
Yeah, if I'm right, like from what I know, this is my opinion.
Exactly.
Like, bang.
Yeah, no, exactly. And yeah, thank you so much for coming on Desert Island Slabs. It's been
thank you.
An amazing chat. I mean, we've gone into some, big chats here on, your previous memories, obviously your time with your grandmother, your golf ball retrieval missions.
Honestly, give me an hour now to do whatever I want. I will go for a walk to find golf balls. Like that, honestly, above anything more fun or interesting. That for me is just bliss.
Yeah, I maybe I should try it sometime. I do love just going for walks though. Like just, as long as it's not really raining. But if it's really cold, stick some gloves on. Especially London now, you can just go for a walk through one of the London parks. So I do it. I enjoy doing it a lot, actually. Just literally walking. Sometimes listening to a podcast. Sometimes just literally just walking. It's just so nice to do. And thank you so much for coming on Desert Island Slabs, Doug. I really appreciate it. It's been an absolute pleasure. For your time, for your sharing your thoughts is amazing. And yeah, any final comments, final remarks before we?
No, just thanks for thinking of the series, because I'm a big fan. I watched them all, and it's something that needed to be made, I think. Well, from my little bubble point of view, it's something that I love to watch.
Oh yeah, it's an absolute pleasure. And also, thank you so much to all the listeners for watching this episode of Desert Island Slabs, the second season of Desert Island Slabs. I have changed the release schedule slightly because of life commitments and job commitments and things. So I will actually be looking to release sort of in a season of 8 episodes. I will be releasing them more regularly in a time rather than monthly. So you will see a burst of Desert Island Slabs, and then you'll have a refractory period, a break, and then you will see another burst of Desert Island Slabs once I've built up an armory of them. But I will also be continuing the other videos as well with a continuation of the Premier League series. But thank you so much for watching. If you could follow the channel, subscribe to it, and hit a like as well as a comment, that would be really nice. It's nice to hear your thoughts, and also it really helps the channel, My Sports Compendium, as well. But for now, it's goodbye from me and goodbye from Doug.